So back in September, after I beat Silksong, I did a sub 5 hour playthrough on Steel Soul mode for the Steam achievement. It was definitely a fun little challenge, but there's another Steam achievement for beating 100% of the game on Steel Soul mode. I figured that this would be quite difficult, so I should probably practice before attempting it. And then I had a brilliant idea. Why don't I do a full 100% clear of the game with the Barbed Bracelet equipped? Surely if I can beat the game with the Barbed Bracelet, then it'll be cake with a safer setup. If you're unfamiliar with the Barbed Bracelet, it's an item that makes you take double damage, but you, in turn, deal more damage. How much more? Well, sadly, according to the Silksong wiki, it works out to be about 23% more damage. Not exactly a fair trade-off in my opinion. Taking double the damage, 100% more, for a slightly higher damage output is not ideal. Plus, it takes up a tool slot on your crest as well. A lot of the discourse around Silksong when it came out was that the 2-mask damage was too unforgiving. Well, with this setup, that 2-mask damage would be taking out 4 of my masks. Yep, 4 masks of damage for simply running into the wrong type of enemy. Ouch. Just look at this clip to see how quickly things can go south. Dude, you're shitting me. So yeah, this was going to be a very interesting run. Sure, I would be able to kill some enemies in one less hit, or a boss in a few less hits, but I would also have to play my life a lot more. And I had to keep this thing on even when it wouldn't help me in the slightest, like during jumping sections like Silksong's version of the Path of Pain. Nope, for the entire run, the bracelet had to stay on. So before I could officially start the challenge, I had to acquire the Barbed Bracelet. This is located in a hidden cave-like area in Sinner's Road, and you cannot access Sinner's Road until you reach Greymoor, which requires acquiring the Drifter's Cloak. As a result, I had to fight a few bosses like Moss Mother, Bell Beast, our first fight with Lace, and Moorwing without Barbed Bracelet. I think you also need Cling Grip to get to Sinner's Road, so I had to fight Sister Splinter as well. And because Widow is right there after killing Sister Splinter, I smoked her too. Though I probably could have went and gotten the Barbed Bracelet first and come back to fight the Widow. But another thing I wanted to do on this run was beat the game 100% in under 30 hours, which was another Steam achievement. So I was trying to play as efficiently as possible. So once I killed Widow and unlocked Bellaheart, the first order of business was seeing Pinmaster Pliny and upgrading our needle damage for the first time. This takes our damage from 5 to 9, so almost double. Then I headed straight to Sinner's Road. I got the Barbed Bracelet, and now it would not come off for the rest of the run. So now we would be dealing 11 damage instead of 9. But there's one more thing I needed. I had already fully beaten the game with the Hunter's Crest, so this time I wanted to use the Wanderer's Crest for this run. To kick off the new year, I went back to Hollow Knight to beat the one thing that had eluded me in my first playthrough, Pantheon 5. It was honestly a very tough challenge, a lot harder than I was expecting. It took me close to 20 hours to do, I think, because I had to practice some bosses individually so that I had them down pat for the Pantheon. Because of this, I was very familiar with the Hollow Knight nail attack, which is basically identical to the Wanderer's Crest attack in Silksong. So I figured I might as well just do my playthrough with that. The other nice thing about this crest is it is the fastest attack needle in the game, so you can get lots of hits in. This is crucial because sometimes I could get 2 hits in on a boss in an attack window, where you often can only get 1 with a slower attack, because Wanderer's is about 34% faster than the base Hunter's Crest. This was another reason I wanted to take out the Widow. Killing her gives us the Needle-In, and the Needle-In gives us access to Weave Nest Atla, which is where we pick up the Wanderer's Crest. Gathering all these things took me about 3 hours, and then I was ready to finally start my challenge. I equipped the Wanderer's Crest and the Barbed Bracelet and set off into Farloom in hopes of completing all that the game has to offer while taking double damage. Could I overcome every boss and accomplish my goal? Well, stay tuned to find out. My first order of business was to get a couple memory lockets and find some mask shards in the early game. So we went and did the Flint Beetle quest for one locket and then took out some pilgrims for another. We grabbed a mask shard, and then there was one last thing I needed to make my build complete. In my first run of the game, I didn't unlock this item until the very end of the game. I had just missed it somehow. It's called Flint Slate. It requires you unlocking a door with a simple key, which I bought from the vendor in Bone Bottom. Then you can access another area of Deep Docks, which is where we found our tool. The item states that it superheats the needle's blade, imbuing each slash with flames and increasing lethality. If we check the wiki for more info, it says that crafting kits do not affect this tool in any way. Instead, the burning damage scales with our needle damage. This means that I don't really have to worry about crafting kits at all. Sure, I will still be getting them for my 100% completion, but I can just focus on leveling my needle whenever the opportunity arises. In addition to the burn damage that it can inflict, it gives you 1.5 times more needle damage for 8 seconds when you activate it. Combine this with our 23% bonus from Barbed Bracelet, and we are hitting for 84.5% more damage. Combine that with the fact that Wanderer's Crest can swing faster than any other needle, and we have ourselves some really good DPS. See, something you may not realize is the crests themselves all have different attack animations, but the base needle damage is the same for all of them, except for Architect's Crest, which is slightly higher. But outliers aside, this is our base needle damage at every upgrade level. Because the damage of the crest does not change, this is another reason I thought it would be best to use Wanderer's Crest. A reason I wanted to do this challenge was to beat every boss with needle damage only. Sure, I could use silk skills if I wanted, this wasn't a strict rule, but the reason I wanted to do needle damage only is it would force me to learn every boss's attack windows. In my initial playthrough, I let Tax and Cogflies with Polyp Pouch carry me through a lot of the boss fights. But in this run, I wanted to be up close and personal. This made things tricky on certain bosses who are notoriously hard to hit, like the Pale Stag. But as far as DPS goes, Barbed Bracelet with Flint Slate and Wanderer's Crest would give me insane damage output. Here's an example on a super late game boss. I have all the needle upgrades at this point, and just watch how fast I kill him. That was a crazy fast boss melt. Yes, I did take some damage at times, but I was also dealing damage when I took those hits. There was a fine line with letting yourself get hit the odd time so that you can deal damage quicker. One instance of damage was due to me not being able to escape the boss when I was in the corner because he had a minion up. But once I did get out of the corner, I killed that bird in just 3 hits. This was crucial because if I needed a 4th hit, I would have taken damage from the bird's pins, but I was able to kill him before he could damage me. This was a textbook example of offense being better than defense. With any other crest, that bird gets a hit in on me, but with Wanderers, I just get that 3rd hit in before he can attack. This is something that I need to stress. Yes, the math is that you deal 23% more damage roughly with Barbed Bracelet equipped, but in actual practice, this can turn out to be a lot more. Say I deal 9 needle damage with 1 upgrade, and an enemy has 10 health. Well, I would need to hit that enemy twice to kill it. But when that 9 becomes 11.25 because of Barbed Bracelet, a 25% increase, but then it rounds down to 11 damage, so the increase is only 22.2% more damage. Then, if I kill that enemy in 1 hit instead of 2, that is half the amount of hits needed. So it is effectively shaving off 50% of the hits that I would need to kill that enemy. 2 hits instead of 3, that's 33% fewer hits. See where I'm going with this? So while the math is showing that we only get a 25% increase to our damage, in practice it can often be a lot more. Though the downside is rough because we are taking 100% more damage always, but for rank and file enemies, this can help us out a lot. But even on bosses like Trobio or Carmelita who are hard to get hits in on, this can help us get the boss down that much quicker. We need fewer attack windows because each time we do attack, we are doing more damage, meaning the fight will be over sooner and the less time we need to spend avoiding damage. So there are pros and cons as we can clearly see. So let's break down this endgame Crawfather fight. Before the fight starts, you have some birds to deal with. There are 2 small birds here and I kill both in just 1 hit because I get a crit. When your silk meter is filled with enough silk to heal with, you have a 2% chance to hit a crit with Wanderer's Crest. This crit does 3 times more damage. So if you get lucky and crit on a boss, this just further lessens how many hits you need to kill it. Additionally, because the needle can swing so fast, it's great for building silk, which is important because we will be needing that to heal because we're taking double damage. So now you can really see why I wanted Wanderer's Crest for this. If I was only going to be relying on my needle and not tools, this was the way to go. Now, in the early game, you don't have much health, only 5 masks. This means if an enemy is dealing double damage, I will be down to 1 mask after just 1 hit, so I can essentially get 2 shot for the majority of the game. You need 4 mask shards to get a new mask, but even at 8 masks, I can still get 2 shot by something like Savage Beastfly. This is just not going to cut it, so once I got my flint slate, it was off to Hunter's March for a crucial tool. This is the first zone in the game that really tests players in my opinion. Some of the enemies in here are quite dangerous, the traversal is very challenging for new players, and it's littered with traps that hit very hard. The traversal was quite easy now though, A, because I have experience in the game, but also because Wanderer's Crest gives you a straight down pogo, which is very user friendly. But first, this area is guarded by a giant ant mini-boss. I remember him being pretty hard on my first playthrough, but with Barbed Bracelet and the Wanderer's Crest, I took him down in about 30 seconds. Yes, his hits would take 4 life away, but that didn't matter because we melted him very quickly. So I briefly mentioned it a minute ago, but here's the thing that I have come to learn about video games. It's that sometimes, in fact, oftentimes, offense is the best defense. Sometimes the best strategy is to delete enemies before they can become a threat. And this is what this challenge was also trying to prove, that even in a game as difficult as Silksong, it might actually become easier if you can take enemies out before they can kill you. So as we traversed through Hunter's March, I was able to put that theory to the test. I did die on the gauntlet once, but on my second try, I smoked those fools. And funnily enough, this would actually be one of the hardest parts of the run because this was my last time in the game without my get out of jail free card in the fractured mask. So now, let's say I had 2 masks of health and I take damage. Instead of dying, my mask will shatter and I will sit on 1 mask of health. The mask does not regenerate until you sit on a bench, but it essentially allows me to take 1 more hit of damage. So on something like Savage Beastfly, say I take 1 hit, my mask goes from 5 to 1. Even if I were to heal, that only gets me to 4 masks. 1 more hit and I would still die. Well, with Fractured Mask, I could survive another hit. This insurance allowed me to survive and get through many situations where I otherwise would have died. It was essential for this run. So now that we had this, we now had pretty much everything that I needed for the run. There's still a couple helpful tools that I can get later and 1 silk skill, but I'll address those when I get them. So since I had my new mask and I was in the area, the next logical choice was to go fight Savage Beastfly. A lot of people complained about this boss, but he's actually quite easy, and this is one of those cases where offense is better than defense. See, he spawns in enemies during the fight, and with our extra damage, we can take them out that much quicker with our increased damage output. Sure, this fight is totally optional, and I could have come back when I was way stronger to smoke him, but I wanted to see how I could do with my new setup. Admittedly, I did die a few times because I was getting back into the groove and just kind of playing like shit. But after a couple tries and shaking off the rust, I deleted him in about a minute. And again, this is just with 1 needle upgrade and I didn't use my flint slate or silk abilities. And as you can see in the fight, I was able to take out the minions he spawned quite quickly thanks to the rapid attacks from Wanderer's Crest and the increased damage from Barbed Bracelet. Being able to take out an ad in 1 less hit would be crucial in so many situations in this run. I would say the extra offense probably helped me more than it hindered me overall throughout this run. Beating the Beastfly rewards us with the Beast Crest, and something this game does is it automatically equips new skills you find. So I had to use the Beast Crest and no Barbed Bracelet until I got back to a bench to rest and re-equip my Barbed Bracelet and Wanderer's Crest. Then I went and did a bunch of busy work. I found some collectibles, and along the way I'd been finding fleas. So I moved the flea caravan to Greymoor. This gave me Flea Brew, which makes you run and attack faster. I would love to pair this with my build, but sadly the downside to Wanderer's Crest is it only has 1 red tool slot. This is for the sake of balance. I explained how it is basically the best DPS crest in the game and also super forgiving with the pogo, and it allows us to build silks super fast, so to balance it, they give you only 1 red tool. Now, I could use Flint Slate or Flea Brew for better DPS, but Flint Slate was my tool of choice for this run. But with other crests, this is a great combination. After that, I found Tip for the Missing Courier quest, and then went to Blasted Steps where I found another memory locket and a craft medal. And then it was time to fight Last Judge. Again, I died a couple times as I familiarized myself with her moveset, but all in all, she was pretty easy to take down. I didn't mention it, but I had grabbed the Magma Bell from the Forge Daughter while in Deep Docks, and it's really good in this fight as it makes the fire damage only deal 2 masks of damage instead of 4. And with that, we were on to Act 2. So all in all, that only took about 5 hours, so we were on pretty good pace. I was doing lots of side stuff and unlocking things as I went. I then had to traverse the underworks, which was not ideal because there are no free benches in sight and I die in a very painful way. I finally cave and I purchase a bench to refresh my mask. I fight my way through a gauntlet and then die to a super non-threatening enemy because I mistimed my needle attack. Feels bad. Later in the run though, we will be picking up a tool that will help my needle attacks hit more consistently. But eventually we escaped the underworks and got to the coral chambers. Here I do a ton of busy work like getting cog heart pieces and unlocking more of the chambers. Eventually I make my way to the cogwork dancers and I forget that they have crazy range on their attacks when they land. I am then reminded of this and proceed to beat the brakes off them. A cool thing about this fight is you can focus on one dancer and only hit them to kill them much quicker. We then unlock the first shrine and talk to the caretaker, and then we pick up the white key, which will give us access to White Word. It is important to grab the key now because if we hadn't, we would have to buy it from the vendor later on, costing us rosaries. We promise some wishes and donate some rosaries, and then set out to do a bunch more busy work. One thing that we do is go back to Blasted Steps and pick up the magnetite dice. These will randomly activate to keep us from taking an instance of damage. It doesn't happen often, but it is really nice when it does. And this is another item that stays on the rest of the run. There's also a cool interaction here where it increases our chances at a crit with the Wanderer's Crest as well. So it's just very, very good to have this item on. We then hit up White Word and grab the Injector Band, which allows us to heal quicker, a very useful tool for certain fights. We then make our way to the area where we get the Claw Line, a very useful tool for traversal and combat. We then also grab a craft medal and a spool fragment while we're in the area, and then we just squeak our way through a gauntlet and get another spool fragment. While collecting cloaks for one of the wishes, we run into Garmin and Zaza, which is great, as if we run into them a couple times, they go to a hidden area and we can duel with them and add them to our Hunter's Journal. It's essentially a secret boss fight. But first, now we have the Claw Line and we head to Mount Fae to get double jump. One thing I've come to learn is that taking cold damage only takes one mask, even with the Barbed Bracelet on, so that's nice. We get through it without too much issue and acquire our double jump. While we are in the area, we grab a mask shard as well as the memory crystal, and then it's back to Bone Bottom where we play a little minigame for a tool pouch upgrade. I mentioned that your crafting kit level does nothing for your flint slate damage, but expanding the pouch allows you to have more flint slates at your disposal. Because I am a pin throwing god, I also do the next challenge of 25 for a heavy rosary necklace, only missing one needle and 41 throws. You can get the expanded tool pouch in Act 3 without doing the game if you want, but you'll miss out on the rosary necklace. From here, we absolutely destroy the Skull Tyrant, turn in the last wishes in Bone Bottom, and buy the last item from the vendor, the magnetite brooch. Then it's off to Bell Bottom to collect silver bells and collect some more quests. I head down into Cogwork Core and learn how to fight these shielded guys without tools. Turns out, you just have to pogo them. Easy peasy. From there, we head to the Whispering Vaults and open up the easy access from First Shrine. We grab the vault's map, and then we make our way through the maze until we get the Pale Oil to give ourselves a needle upgrade. Then it's straight to Bellheart to donate some relics for rosaries and upgrade our needle with the oil. Now we have 2 needle upgrades, so we went from 9 to 13 damage, and thanks to Barbed Bracelet, that's going to put us at 16 damage per hit. After this, I head back up the Citadel and fight Garmin and Zaza, and with that extra needle damage, the fight did not last long at all. We unlock another Cogheart piece, which allows us to fight Second Sentinel. Then we grab a mask fragment, and then we head to the Trobio fight. I elect not to grab his quill, which would allow me to fill in my map. You can get a white one from Chakra, or grab Trobio's red quill, which is what I did in my Steel Soul run. So in my first run I have the white quill, my Steel Soul run I have the red quill, but for this run I wanted the super rare purple quill, which we get from Tormented Trobio, so we would have to wait for Act 3 before we could start filling in our map. We beat him first try, which was honestly unfortunate because my fight against him was very ugly, but it would have been much better on a second go now that I was familiar with his moveset. Regardless, we go past this stage and grab a memory locket, and then we get the Sacred Cylinder to complete the Vault Keeper's Melody. After that, I visit New because I have over 100 entries in the journal and she expands my tool pouch. Then I'm off to Sinner's Road to rescue Pill. I then talk to Krul and Benjin to get the Roach Guts quest for the tax. I take out some muck roaches and then go get a simple key. We absolutely deleted the dude who gives you that. This is a textbook example of what I was talking about of enemies with tight damage windows. With Hunter's Crest, I could probably only get one swing in on this guy, But with Wanderers, I'm able to get 2 hits in every time he does an attack. Since we're in the area, we free the Green Prince. We kill enough muckroaches to get the tax, and then it's off to Wisp Thicket. We take out the Father of Flame in a few attempts, grab all the secrets in the thicket, and open up the secret route to the Underworks. Then we head back to Greymoor and get the Crest of the Reaper after a very straightforward gauntlet. We then go visit the Fleas and move their caravan to the Blasted Steppes. We rescue Jubilana and grab a mask fragment and simple key off of her. We then hit up the Memoriam and do all the secrets that that area holds, like capturing the giant flea and getting the last Cogheart piece, among other things. Next up was Cogwork Core to do the Architect's Melody, and then we delivered the Cogheart piece to the second Sentinel. We then spoke to Loyal Mergwyn about his pale oil, and this triggered us to be able to start the Taste of Farloom quest. But first, I wanted to save Sherma, which awards us with a spool fragment. While we are over here and now equipped with the claw line, I grabbed the Surgeon's Key to fight the Unraveled, which is what we go and do. I remember this fight pretty well, but it still took me a couple tries to beat. This awards us with our second Silk Heart, and there is a Psalm Cylinder nearby, so we grab that as well. Finally, it's back to Bellheart where we grab the Courier's Rasher and deliver it to Loyal Mergwyn. First try, easy peasy. I actually used my own guide on how to do it. So my next task was doing the Great Taste of Farloom so that I could get another needle upgrade as soon as possible. Again, offense is the best defense, so I wanted to focus on that before continuing with anything else. The first thing I did was went to Greymoor for a hidden memory locket that we can now grab since we have our double jump, and then I went and got a spool fragment. From here, it was straight to Sinner's Road for a showdown with the disgraced chef Lugali, who we smoked to get the pickled muck maggot. Then I went to another sort of hidden area to talk to Styx, a vendor who makes us silk eaters. My next order of business was getting to the Putrefied Ducks where we unlock the fast travel. I grabbed the map and the Key of Apostate, but the main reason for coming here was to talk to the Huntress. They give us the Brood Feast wish where you have to deliver organs. Some are seared, so we just use a flint slate to make those. Others are skewered, so we use the long pin. And the last ones are shredded organs, so that's a great excuse for us to go get the Delver's Drill from the Underworks, which I had forgotten to grab. We kill some enemies with the drill, and then that quest is complete. We return to the Huntress to get the Long Claw. This makes our attacks hit from further away, a very handy quality of life item, and great for certain boss fights. This also rounded out my quest to have everything that I really wanted. Barbed Bracelet, of course, the Magnetite Dice for reasons I already explained, Long Claw, Flint Slate, and Fractured Mask. There are some other good items that you can use throughout your run, but these were the main ones that I really wanted, and now we had them all. Next, we spoke to Krage at the Greymoor Tavern to get his vintage nectar. This was textbook, offense is the best defense, as we just demolished the enemies here. It was honestly such a satisfying fight. I then took a detour through Shellwood to get the last of the polyp parts that I needed for the polyp pouch, and while here, I grabbed a flea and a mask fragment. Then it was time for Sands of Karak for the crust nut. We take out the Raging Conch Flies and go visit the Pinterest where we learn Needle Strike. We get through all the tricky traversal in Sands of Karak and finally get to the bench and grab another simple key. While I'm there, I decide to unlock the shortcut for the boss fight and the shortcut to get there from Blasted Steppes. We also check in with Chakra for the map. Getting all her maps is part of the 100% game requirement, but there's another reason that we really want all her maps, which I will talk about when we get there. Now that the Blasted Steppes way is open, I rest at the Blasted Steppes bench and then go get the crust nut. Overall, the traversal wasn't too terrible and the downward pogo helped a ton here, but it definitely would have been nice to not have Barbed Bracelet on. The reason I saved Mossberry Stew for last is because I wanted to get all the Mossberries so that when I went to get the stew, I could also get the Druid's Eye upgraded. I also wanted to hit up Wormways, and on the way there, I had to kill the platypus looking thing. This was super easy in my first playthrough thanks to Cogflies, but it was a lot less easy doing it with needle only. But we got it done. We grab the Deadbug's purse and eventually find Alchemist Xylitol. We do his quest and also go to Weavenest Kern to get the Sharp Dart Silk skill, which I never really used in my first playthrough, but it's a skill that I came to love later on in this run. We also grab a hidden memory locket, and then we're done with Wormways. Now we can finally go to Weavenest Atla. We evolve the Hunter's Crest as well as get part of our Vesta Crest. We also find a bunch of secrets, including getting our final Mossberry. We also take out the 2 Moss Mothers to get Weave Light, which gives you more silk. I didn't use it on this run, but it's a very good item. I also show off why it's so handy to be able to take enemies out quickly. Once we get everything in Weave Nest Atla, which is a lot, there's a lot of secrets here, we head to the Moss Druid to get our stew and upgrade our Druid's Eye. I forgot, but giving her moss berries gives you rosaries also, which is nice. This also completed our Taste of Farloom quest, so we head to Loyal Mergwyn and deliver everything for him to feed his master. We then get another Pale Oil. So we get another needle upgrade, bringing us to level 4. This time we had to pay 450 rosaries, but well worth it as we go from 13 to 17 damage. And thanks to Barbed Bracelet, we're hitting for 21 damage now. This is equivalent to the maxed out needle damage. We also turn in some relics for more rosaries. Then we deliver the Queen's Egg to Styx to increase her output of Silk Eaters. After this, it was finally time for the Mist, where I did die a few times. I knew this area would suck with Barbed Bracelet. It did only take me a few tries, but it was still stressful. Then it was time to fight Phantom, which I kinda sucked at, not gonna lie. It did only take me 3 tries, but the fight I beat her was not great. Regardless, we got it done, and I got the final thing that I'd been wanting, Cross Stitch, a wonderful silk ability for dueling with. I then headed up to the Citadel to save Jubilana using my fun new ability, which worked wonders on the birds. Then I spent a bunch of rosaries now that she had some fresh supplies. Next up was the slab, probably the hardest part of the run for me. I got all the items in this area, and then it was time for the toughest Barbed Bracelet boss, First Sinner. This boss moves a lot and very quickly, and I do not like the dash attack with the Wanderer's Crest. It shoots you up, which can make your follow-up moves really awkward, which is not good when you have to react to things quickly. This boss took me a half an hour to beat, by far the longest of any boss on this run. The real killer with this boss is that it spawns you right outside when you die, not near a bench. So if I died, I would not have my Fractured Mask, and I was too stubborn to do 2 runbacks each time. So I just tried gutting it out, but at 8 masks, that was still only 2 hits that I could withstand, and I could have come back later and fought it with 9 masks, but I again was too damn stubborn. A half hour isn't terrible, but I just struggled for a variety of reasons. Like I said, the follow-up after the sprint attack being a huge one. But eventually we overcame the First Sinner. After that, I fought the Volt Worm, which was very easy and gave me the Volt Filament, another item that I would come to use. This buffs your silk skills, which is really nice in certain cases. Then I took out the Raging Conchfly. I died a couple times as I was getting into it, but then smoked it without taking damage until the very end. So overall, a pretty good fight. The extra damage was really nice in that one because you usually only get like 1 hit in as it's going by, so every hit dealing more damage just makes it go that much quicker. Next, it was off to Deep Docks where I got pinched in a tough gauntlet. This one was only hard because of the explodey guys and taking 4 damage from their attacks, but I did get through it. Then it was time to fight Cygnus and Gron because I hear that fight sucks in Act 3. And you can see me absolutely wreck the boss with my Flint Slate. It's so satisfying on bosses where you can get big attack windows. Then we finally make our way to the Diving Bell, so we're set up for Act 3. The Skull Tyrant then showed up in Bone Bottom and we absolutely wreck him in like no time. It was super satisfying. From there, it was time to hit up Weave Nest Atla to unlock our full Vesta Crest so that we can use the max number of items. Then we fight the Savage Beastfly again and absolutely crush it. His minions were dying in 2 hits and we just smoked the boss. It was honestly insane how easy it was with more damage output. While I was in the area, I hit up the Lava Run. You have to take some enemies out first, and while this would be much easier with something like Cogflies, I was able to get it done with relative ease. But yeah, trying to just do needle damage on flying enemies can be a pain in the ass sometimes, but the straight down pogo did help a lot. We took the enemies out, including using a nice cross stitch, and then went on to get our mask fragment. The last thing I needed over here were the Silk Speed anklets, so I went and got those from Weave Nest Syndril. I then turned in the Beastfly fragment and got another mask fragment. Next, I wanted to go see Loam in the Underworks before he dies in Act 3. And finally, it was time for the area I was dreading the most, Biowater. The first order of business was grabbing the Wreath of Purity. I didn't have a bench nearby to put it on, but at least I now had it. This area was tough as hell on my first playthrough, but on my second, it felt so much easier. It also helped that I waited till the very end, so I was much stronger at this point in the game. I went and got the Ruined Tool from Weave Nest Merglin, then I found a Flea, and then Chakra for her final map. I then bought the rest of her inventory since I would soon have a Quill. Having the downward pogo for the traversal helped tremendously here. Not that I am not good with the Hunter's Crest, but this is just so much easier for pogoing on the big enemies' heads. I traversed through all the bile water, grabbing items as I went, and got to the secret bench all in one go. Experience really is the best teacher. Getting that bench helped immensely. I threw on Wreath of Purity, then it was off to fight Grohl. Of course, my first attempt I died to contact damage, so then I threw on Threadstorm thinking it may be better, but it did this thing on my run sometimes where it deactivated my Barbed Bracelet for some reason. Luckily I noticed when the fight started, but it's still pretty annoying. This happened to me a few times throughout my playthrough. Anyways, I restarted and got the bracelet active, and then I smoked Grohl. I tried the getting swallowed technique where I put in some nice damage, and you can see that the Wreath of Purity was also working wonders. Overall, the fight was so much easier this time around. Having lots of masks and the Wreath of Purity is basically all I needed, where on my first playthrough, I struggled a lot. The downward pogo also helped a lot. I then went through everything else at Bilewater and got the fast travel, and then went on and got the Trail's End quest. I was super close to getting the hidden mask fragment first try, but they do damage in 2 instances. So the first broke my mask, and then it killed me. I got it easily on my second try though. We then found Chakra, and she gives us her rings, and more importantly, we're able to unlock her for something that would make our life much easier in the near future. But first, I had to get the last thing from Bilewater, the Twisted Bud. This would allow us to get the Witch Crest. There are guides on how to do this, so I won't bore you with all the steps, but suffice to say, I went and completed the quest and got the Witch Crest. Also, because it was near where I had to be at Yarnaby's home, I crafted the Pimpolo. Then, it was off to High Halls to complete the main story. There are lots of secrets here, but one of them is getting the Cogflies, which I did, and I also disabled the spiders from spawning. And now for the best part, I was able to enlist Chakra's help with the High Halls Gauntlet, a notoriously hard fight. I will say, I did not fight well here at all, as I found Chakra to be quite distracting, but I took the one big scorpion out nice and fast at the very end, and that was pretty much it. Again, the extra damage was definitely nice for destroying enemies quickly. Near the High Halls is a door for our last simple key where I found some secrets, including the Rosary Cannon. We then learned the Conductor's Melody, and we were getting close to finishing Act 2. But first, we had a couple quests for Broodmother and Second Sentinel. Again, these fights weren't the cleanest, but I got them done without much trouble. The Sentinel gives you Reserve Bind, and the Broodmother gives you Broodmother's Eye. I put the Injector Band on for this fight, and it was great for quick heals. I'm unsure if you're normally able to one-shot the flies that it spawns, but with Barbed Bracelet we were definitely able to do so, and being able to take them out in one hit sure made life easy. After this, I returned to Bellheart and opened my new Bell home. Then I moved the fleas to Fleetopia. Before I could finish Act 2, I had to fight Chakra just outside of Bellheart to add her to the Hunter's Journal. This is a very tough fight with only your needle. I died many times, but eventually I got it done. After this, I had done pretty much everything that I needed to do before heading to Act 3. I got the last of the spool fragments and mask shards that I needed, and then it was time to fight Lace. Embarrassingly, I died on my first attempt, but smoked her on the second go. I then went and picked up the Silk and Soul quest so that I could trigger Act 3. I had the Soul Setter from Weebnest Atla and the one soul from Grohl. Then I got the Maiden Soul from the Old Lady by the Ruined Chapel, and then headed to Weebnest Atla one last time. This upgraded the Hunter's Crest, but because I had gotten the Witch Crest and fully upgraded the rest of my crests, I was able to get Silksong to give me Silk when I rested at benches. I then went and got the Hermit's Soul, and now it was time for Grandmother Silk. I gave the Caretaker the souls, and we were ready to go. The Injector Band once again came in clutch in this fight. I beat her on my first try, though it wasn't a very clean fight, but I was so OP, so we melted her very quickly. At this point, we were just over 22 hours in, and we were done Act 2, but I had done pretty much everything that you could do in Act 2, so Act 3 was sure to go pretty quickly, or at least I was hoping. So when you start Act 3, you spawn at the cradle and have to work your way down. Unfortunately, the game sets you back to the default Hunter's Crest, so I did not have the Barbed Bracelet equipped at this point. It introduces us to our first taste of void enemies in a small gauntlet. We dispatch them easily and make our way down. Sherma wakes us up and tells us how the void has overtaken Farloom. I use this opportunity to sit at the nearest bench and equip my crest and Barbed Bracelet. I also slap on Volt Filament and Threadstorm because that goes insanely hard on the void enemy clusters, and our next boss we are set to face, the Bell Beast. But first, after waiting for over 20 hours, I swing through the Whispering Vaults to grab my purple quill so that I can finally fill in my map. What a godsend. After that, it is off to the Bell Station, but our friendly Bell Beast is nowhere to be found. Instead, we are introduced to the Bell Eater. I will admit I died once because I had to familiarize myself with the fight, but round 2 was a different story. I got some great RNG on the boss spawns to abuse the Volt Filament Thread Storms, and ended up beating the fight with full health. This was definitely the fight that I used my needle the least, mostly just using it to build silk, and the bulk of the damage came from my Thread Storm. From there, it was off to Bellheart to see Pliny, but he was gone. We go and rescue him in Shellwood as he is paying respects to his late wife. I played quite aggressively and we came out with the win on the first attempt. We had to rescue him so that we can upgrade our needle one final time. But before doing that, I headed to the Snell Shamans to talk to them and progress the main quest line. The quest then sends me to talk to Ballo, the husband of the Forge daughter. He will help us take the bell to the Abyss. On our way down, the bell crashes and we make our way to the end of the Abyss where Lace shows up. We then head to Weavenest Absalom and get the Silksong ability. We also grab the Farsight to see our game completion percentage. Then it's time for the fiery escape sequence, which is sick as hell. Barbed Bracelet does nothing for us here, but we were able to beat it with relative ease. We head to Bellheart and grab the quest to fight the Pinstress and the one for the Flea Festival. This will allow us our final needle upgrade, so it's a priority as it will make all future bosses that much easier. So it's off to the Putrefied Ducks to head to the final home of the Fleas and complete their minigames in the Festival of the Flea. I also get the Egg of Flelia, another item that we need for 100%. Ironically, these minigames took me way longer in this run than it did my first time playing it. I of course stuck with Wanderer's Crest, and you would think this would be easier, but I honestly had an easier time with Hunter's Crest in my first playthrough. Anyways, I started with Flea Dodge, and it felt like I was horrible and it took me forever, but watching the footage back, I beat it in only 13 minutes of attempts. The pogoing was one and done, and the juggling took me a couple attempts, but still only 3 minutes. So all in all, it was about 20 minutes, but it felt like it was tough. And then we were off to Pliny for that final upgrade. We then use our Silk Sword to get a memory fragment, and then assemble our Farsight at our Bell home. We are at a respectable 94% in under 24 hours, and with Act 3 really just beginning. We then head back to the Shamans and learn the Elegy of the Deep so we can spawn the Bell Babies to take us to our last used Bell Station. We then head to the Pinstress's abode and learn she is on Mount Fae. She's a total pacifist, so this fight is quite annoying when you're mostly using your needle and not abusing cogflies. I wind up getting a lucky dice proc just before defeating her. Definitely not a fan of this boss fight, as it was really hard to get hits in. Since we are at Mount Fae, I go and grab a mask shard that gets us closer to our 10th and final mask. Then I head back to the Shaman area and grab the Shaman's Crest. Next, I head to the Citadel and grab the quest for fighting Tormented Trobio. But before that, I figure we should head to Crust King Khan. I know the gauntlet will be my demise, so I want to get the worst part over with early. The flying enemies are just very hard to deal with when you're mostly using your needle. I wind up dying here about 17 times, my most deaths aside from First Sinner, but with practice and repetition, I learned that the Sharp Dart is great for dealing with the flying enemies. I get a rhythm down and get the gauntlet down. I then open the gauntlet shortcut and breeze through the gauntlet before the boss, and then beat the absolute piss out of Crust King Khan. This boss is honestly not very hard at all, his gauntlet is just a bitch. From there, I went to get the Pale Nails, the final silk move that I needed for the 100%. This takes me to 98% completion. Next, it was off to unlock the area of Scarsinger Carmelita, but we weren't going to fight her just yet. On the way, I was taking out Void Growths, and that extra needle damage upgrade was coming in very clutch. The new enemy gauntlet in Hunter's March was no match for my power. At this point, I knew that offense was the best defense. While in the general area, I went and got my curved claw upgraded. This is not a requirement for 100%, but I figured why not. I explored some spots in far fields that I hadn't yet, just because I wanted to get everything, and finally, we ended up at Sprintmaster Swift. I smoked the first race, then the second. The third took me 3 tries, but wasn't too bad. This awarded me with another mask shard. Then, before going to Carmelita, I went and got the final memory locket, which was guarded behind a big ant dude. Equipped with the highest needle damage and flint slate, homie did not stand a chance. Next, it was finally time for Carmelita. I died a few times, but this was just getting used to the fight again. I had the gauntlet before the fight down to a science. And then, look at how awful I opened up the fight. I started the fight losing my fractured mask in a matter of seconds, but then I clutched the hell up, battled back, and took her down. I got a huge damage sequence with a crit proc while I had flint slate going, so that was just huge damage on her. Then on her final phase, I got the stun, got some big hits in, and then a huge cross stitch. Unfortunately, it was the one attack where you take damage with the cross stitch because of the pillars that emerges from the ground, but we delete her quickly in the final phase, and that's that. Final phase is often hard to find damage windows, hence why I went out so aggressive. After Carmelita, it was time for Gur the Outcast. I died once, but got familiar with his attacks quickly and then beat the crap out of him. And not for nothing, but if I didn't have Longclaw on, that final melt would not have been able to happen thanks to his traps being in the way. Again, your build selection matters for bosses. Silksong is not an easy game, but you can make it much easier on yourself with proper tool selection. After beating Gur, we grabbed the grass doll and then turn it in for our second to last mask shard. Then, on my way to Nihilith, I killed my last Void Heart. Then it was time to do battle with Shrine Guardian Seth. He beat me and I decided to leave and turn in the Void Heart questline for my final mask. This took me to 99% in just under 26 hours. Seth killed me like 5 more times, but I finally got his attack patterns down and overcame him. Then it was time for Nihilith. Again, I died 5 times and then I was able to take her out. This fight would be much easier with poison cogflies, but it's not all that difficult. I just had to be more patient. Eventually though, that patience paid off and I beat her. It's funny, at the end of that fight, she was one shot for a while, but I was healing and playing passively, so I had no idea thanks to no health bars. But either way, I was able to take her out relatively easily. With the 3 main bosses dead, it was time to go see the Snail Shamans and finish this game once and for all. We made our way through the red memory with the Hunter's Crest and obtained the Everbloom. At this point, we actually had achieved the 100% completion, so all that was left to do was beat Lost Lace, and I had 3.5 hours to do it. The trick with Lost Lace is to not move more than you have to. My first death was due to contact damage because I was sprinting. Contact damage was the death of me my first time around, so I just had to get that corrected and we'd be good. I wound up dying 6 times total, and on lucky attempt number 7, this happened. No excess movement, just patience, and only attacking when I had a sure window. Overall, the fight was not near as bad as I remembered the first time around. The Con Gauntlet and First Sinner took me way more attempts than Lost Lace. And then, in just under 27 hours, I had beat the game with 100% completion. I got the Steam achievement, but believe it or not, I was not done here. There were more things I wanted to do. I wanted to do everything with Barbed Bracelet on. First up was Tormented Trobio. I died 3 times and then just beat him. His diagonal explosions are the death of me, but we just squeaked by him and got the Dark Mirror. Next was Lost Garmund, who I beat mainly with pogos. It was a close fight, but I only needed 1 attempt. Then it was time for Watcher at the Edge, an easy fight if you stay patient and just keep your distance. The trick is learning that distance threshold and keeping good positioning. He killed me once, but then I knew the positions I had to be in and took him out with relative ease. This awarded us the Grey Memento. From here it was off to Sprintmaster Swift with a 6-lap race to earn the Sprintmaster Memento. Then it was off to Greymore and the Court of Kraws. This was my favorite run of the entire game. I showed it earlier, but it really does show the power of going all out on offense. It wasn't the cleanest run, as I could have used Cross Stitch better to avoid some damage and dish out even more, but I absolutely cooked this boss fight and got the Craw Memento in the process. From there, I did the Mount Fey delivery to the mask maker without realizing that Silksong does damage to the package. Luckily, I clutched the hell up and made it, so really the only damage I took was self-inflicted. Then it was off to Fleetopia to beat Seth's high scores, something I didn't do my first time around. Flea dodge wasn't too bad, only taking 8 minutes to beat, but then came the juggling. This took me 50 minutes to beat. Just insane. I don't know why I was so bad at this. Then it was time for Flea Bounce, which took me about 15 minutes to beat, so not too bad. And with that, we had bested Seth's scores and gotten the Guardian Memento. From there, it was time for the Path of Pain, where the Barbed Bracelet would only serve to hinder me, but I had to do it with it on. I got the weird Barbed Bracelet not showing up glitch again, so I had to quit save to reset it, but I am just happy that I noticed. After 30 minutes of attempts, look at how close I got to beating it. I don't know why I didn't grasp the wall there, but that was immensely disappointing. But 10 minutes later, I managed to overcome the challenge and make it to the nameless town at the top. Then I played a little tune and got the surface memento. 6 down, 2 to go. Then it was off to find the Green Prince and unlock Lost Verdania. Just look at how beautiful this place is. This place has lots of tough enemies, so I don't think the bracelet helped that much. They just move so quickly and they're really hard to avoid, so you take a lot of damage. Eventually, I got to the Pale Stag and died once. I crutched on Cogflies hard on this one in my first playthrough, but in my second attempt, I overcame the challenge and beat this majestic boss. The claw line was hugely beneficial. Then came a true challenge, dealing with these flying enemies in a gauntlet. Again, they just move around so quickly, so it's really hard to land hits on them. But after a couple attempts, I beat them. And that left me with one final boss, the Cogwork Dancers rematch, the Clover Dancers. I beat this one first try, but it wasn't the cleanest fight. Regardless, it was done and I got the Conjoined Heart. That gave me 7 out of 8 mementos. The last one was completing my Hunter's Journal, which I am pleased to report I accomplished. I also went and got all the relics and Materium with the help of YouTube videos. I did this stuff off stream because it was more just busy work, but rest assured, I had the Barbed Bracelet on the entire time. Oh, and I also went and beat Plasmified Zango. The funny thing with this boss is he heals throughout the fight, so if you're passive, he will take forever to kill. But because my build was all about dishing out damage, I beat him in under 30 seconds. And it could have been faster, but I was taking time to heal. So it was a really appropriate boss to finish the challenge on because it really encapsulated the essence of this run. All the fights from my Barbed Bracelet run are on my YouTube channel in their entirety if you're interested in seeing a specific boss fight with Barbed Bracelet. Obviously I couldn't show every fight in full because this video is long enough already. And that'll do it. That was my journey of beating every single thing in Hollow Knight Silksong while taking double damage. It was honestly a super fun challenge and I'm so glad I did it. It made me much better at the game while also giving me an excuse to do another playthrough to get the speed completion achievement. All that I have left now is the Steel Soul 100%, but this run gave me the practice that I needed to get that done in due time. I know this video was extremely long, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, a like and sub would be greatly appreciated as a ton of work went into this. I'm streaming the Souls series on Twitch at ItSizzle7 when this video comes out, so come by and say hey and watch me learn another game with a notoriously high skill check. I'm looking forward to the challenge. Lastly, if you're still here, thanks so much for watching to the end. It means a lot. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Damn. Oh, what a melt.